Good afternoon. This is Professor Minton. And first off, I hope that this finds everyone in good health and good spirits. Today, what I want to do is I want to give you about six different functions in Excel that you haven't really seen yet, or if we've talked about them only briefly. I wanted to put them on paper today so you can see how they actually work. And the first one is adding leading zeros to numbers. And if you later on have a statistics class or even some other kind of class where you need to add a leading zero or a set of leading zeros, Excel doesn't do that natively without your telling it to do so. So for example, if I point to this 545 here, and if I type it in with a leading zero, 0545, and then hit enter, you notice that it drops the leading zero. And it would do that for each of those numbers, including if I put this one in as 0096, it'll still show it as 96. So if I want to do it where I add the leading zeros, I would just highlight the group. Now, if I had 1,500 of these and had them in column H, for instance, I could just highlight column H and do the same thing. In this case, I only have three numbers, so I'll just highlight those three numbers and then go up to the number group and make sure you're in the home tab of the ribbon. Go to the number group, drop it down, come to custom, which is the last entry on the page. You have general to start with, drop to 0. And in this case, we've got three numbers at the maximum. So for us to have a leading 0 in every instance, we need to add three more zeros here. So 0, 0, 0. And when I do that and click OK, notice that I now have leading zeros in front of each of these numbers. The next thing I want to show you is how to highlight duplicates within data sets. This is called a data set because it has numbers, it has names, things that we could use uh, to create some information from. So if I wanted, as an example, to see Cranston Marine, I could pull that out of the data set simply by asking for number 367. In this case, what I want to do is something a little different. I want to check to see whether or not in my data set I have any duplicates, because I don't want, in this case, I don't want duplicates to exist in my data set. So I'm going to highlight these numbers, and numbers are always a good thing to use because with databases, usually if we can, we make a number the primary key, primary meaning it's only used uniquely. So in this case, all of these numbers should be unique. And if you look down here, you see that I've added two Mark Hansens, which make this a non-unique data set. So what I want to do is I want to go out and find those duplicates. And again, if you can imagine having 1,500 or 2,000 numbers, you can see how this would be a helpful tool. And you could probably figure out a way to do it with find, but it's a lot easier to do it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure still that I'm in the home tab of the ribbon, and I'm going to come up to conditional formatting within the styles group and drop it down. The first one that I have to select from is highlight cell rules, and I'm going to prescribe a rule for this, and that is duplicate values. So when I click it, notice that it took that and highlighted just those areas that were duplicates. Now I can change this to a different color if I'd rather have a yellow fill or a green fill. I can easily do that. If I want it to be solid, I can do that as well. That's not really the point, but it does give you here an idea of how you can easily visually identify any duplicates you have within a set. Okay, now let's move on to hiding and unhiding information. And this is one that I oftentimes use when I download student grades, for example. If I download all the information that is in Georgia View for students under grades, I get a lot of information that I don't need. But I don't know whether I may not need it in the future. So I download the whole thing and then I hide those cells that I don't want to see. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the entire group. And so if I come up here and point to this 25 and then highlight all the way down through 30, right click and click hide, notice that I don't see these anymore. And if I said, you know what, I didn't really mean to hide those, I could control Z as in zebra and bring them back. Now, if you do anything else after you have hidden them beyond control Z, then control Z doesn't work. So what would you do in that case? Well, let's hide them again by right clicking and hide. And then simply, if I want to reveal them again, I'm going to pick the row before and after the hidden. And you can see, if you look very carefully, you can see where I've hidden it. And so now I'm just going to highlight 24 and 31, and which automatically highlights those that are hidden. Right click those and unhide, and that again displays the information that I have hidden. There's also, by the way, a way to indicate to others that you've hidden some cells and that they may want to use, but I'm not going to go into that right now because it's quite a more complex set of steps that you have to follow. So now we looked for duplicates. How about if we wanted to find unique values within data sets? Well, we can do this basically the same way. I'm going to highlight this group of numbers again. I'm going to go to the styles group, conditional formatting, drop it down, highlight cell rules, and come again to duplicate values. You'll notice that where it says duplicate, there's a drop down box. If I drop that down and click on unique, now it gives me all of the unique values in that cell group. And I can change this to a red border. I can change it to red text, whatever you want to do, whatever makes it easy for you to distinguish what those are. And okay. All right, now this next thing I want to do is to disallow non-conforming entries and make people use the formatting that we have decided upon. Now, there's a very easy way to do this, in this case with Social Security number, and I'll just show you very quickly how you would do that. If you go to the Home tab of the ribbon and drop down the number and come over here to Special, you see the Social Security number, and when you click on Social Security number, that automatically will put in that box the dashes that you need. In this case, though, let's assume it's something other than Social Security number, but that's what I picked. And what I wanted you to be able to do was tell your users that they need to put dashes in between those numbers. Now, the way that I'm going to do it is probably not the most elegant way to do it, because as long as they give me 11 characters, they could actually put in periods or something like that instead of dashes. But I'm hoping that they're going to put in the dashes. Now, so I'm going to point to this cell that they're supposed to put their Social Security number in, and I'm going to come up here to the top to the Data tab. And you remember how we did data validation before? Well, we're going to look at it again. This time we're going to do a little different function, but we're going to drop down Data Validation, and up here under Settings, then I want to come down and I want to put in text length. So I'm going to define the length of the required text. And it says here data between, but I'm just going to put in here the minimum is 11 and the maximum is 11. That requires them to have 9 numbers and 2 dashes. Now the input message I'm going to put in is dashes. Oops. Take my caps lock off. And the input message would be, please insert dashes between number groups as shown in the example. And I'm also going to have an error alert. And in this case, I'm not going to give it a title. It's just going to be like a stop. And this is what the stop looks like if they didn't do it right. And I'm going to put in here dashes and click OK. And you notice that the first thing is very polite. It says dashes. Please insert dashes between number groups as shown in the example. And this is the example here. And so if I come in here and I put in 111, 11, 1111, which is the 9 numbers without dashes, then and click off or click the mouse button, it says dashes, retry. And in this case, then, or cancel, and you put in 111 dash 11 dash 1111. And this is one of the, by the way, one of the failings. It's fine now because it has its dashes, but the bad news is, I guess, is you could put 111 dot 11 dot 1111 in there as well, and it was still accepted because it's still 11 characters. Again, the easier way to do it would be to define that cell in your number group as having a social security number in it, and that would do it for you. Okay, the last one I want to show you today is linking to internal and external sources. So here, let's link first to an external source. And so maybe we want the users to go out to Google and look something up. So in this case, I'm going to come up here to the ribbon and change it to the Insert tab. And if I come over here, and yours maybe will look a little different depending upon your version, but in mine, it has a link icon. If I drop the link icon down, I'm going to insert a link. And I want to put this to an existing file or web page. Go to Google would be the text to display, and I'm going to put this in as HTTPS. The S, of course, stands for Secure Socket Layer, and then google.com, or you could put in www.google.com and click OK. And now you will notice that you have a link to go to Google. And if I come to that and click it, my internet's a little slow today, but eventually it's going to take me out to Google, and there we are. Okay, so going back, now what I want to do is to link it to another page or another worksheet, I guess I should say, in this workbook. And where I could link it to a Word document, I could link it anywhere I wanted to. In this case, I'm going to link it to sheet 2 and to a square root calculator. Okay, so let's go back to sheet 1 now, and I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to highlight this group of words, and I'm going to then come up to link, just like I did before, under Insert tab. Come over to Link, Insert Link, and this time I'm going to say place in this document, because even though it's a different worksheet, it's still within this workbook. And I think I saw that that was H7 where that appeared. So I'm going to click on H7 and click OK. And now when I say compute square roots, I'm going to click on compute square root. I'm going to click on, oh, I know what I did. Never mind. Let me go back. I didn't do something right here. So, and what I didn't do right is I didn't define it as sheet 2. And so I have to go back up here to my link and insert link. And it's right now you see where sheet 1 is highlighted. So it took me to H7 in sheet 1. And that's all that happened. So if I click on sheet 2 here and click OK, now it should work. Click on compute. And so now enter the number you want to the square root of, and 121 has the square root of 11. So when I click on 121 or type in 121, I get 11. Try another one, 49, we know is 7. And we see that it does in fact work. 1,000 is, I don't know, something. 31.6227766, so it'll take it out quite a ways. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to show you today. As I said, tomorrow I will start looking at something that I can do for next week. I may have a video out there for you earlier, but probably it won't be until early next week that you see the next video, and it'll probably be another half a dozen or so Excel functions that you haven't really seen yet. They're not going to be too complicated, but you need to remember all of the functionality that we've given you so far, because on your final examination, you will see something very much akin to what we saw for Lab 1, except it'll have some of these other things in it too. There'll probably be something in the neighborhood of 20 questions on that examination. Okay, I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Again, stay inside, stay healthy, and I look very much forward to seeing you again when we're back to normal. Thank you so much.